we have the Teotihuacan pyramid, which is actually the Aztec pyramid that was studied by Montezuma. And then we have Palenque. Some of your listeners probably don't know the fact that with a man that I was being mentored by, that we'll probably get into a little bit as, time goes on in the shows that we'll be having, they'll learn that I was mentored and was being trained by a man of military intelligence that had been in it for 45 years. And we were on our way on a special project down to Palenque. Isn't that interesting? Well, we got turned away, and the military kept us from getting there. But that's a long story. But Palenque is a key. Anyway, each of them have been built with orientations to the cosmos or the stars. And this can actually, if you look at it, it'll reveal some intimate knowledge that they had of their systems. Now, this is just basic. We all know this, and it's stuff that we already have been hearing. We've been hearing about this for a long time. But when you look and examine all this information, it reveals that there was some interesting predictive values, and that they were actually built into the megaliths. And with that in mind, we can kind of just move forward with what those are and what they meant and how do they correlate with what we have today. But there are many authors and researchers that have been writing about this Mayan calendar thing for, go to the bookstore and you'll see a bunch of them. And it's very interesting. We have some authors, a variety of them. We have John Maynard Jenkins, we have Carl Kalaman, we have Jose Aguilas, and all of them have their kind of twist, and they all vary, but they all do talk about, with their calendar, an end of the calendar or an end of time, and it varies from 2011 to 2012. So in the epic of the known history of the planet, that's pretty narrow. But let's look at that because there are some of these authors that have brought up some good points. Many of the points, although varied on the end times, they have some major milestone events, and they're all on the same date. And it's really eerie to see what those dates are. It's very important for us to pay attention to it. And tonight I'm going to go through some of those, and I'm going to tell you where they fell in the webbot report with Cliff High, and we're going to talk about the webbot report and its programming and its association with some other very interesting, I guess you could just say intelligence information that is still kicking around in the geopolitical scene, And Griff has a lot of info on that. I'm catching up with it, but it involves money, so we're going to talk about that. But Carl Kalaman wrote some books. Now, I thought he wrote two. I think I've been correct. That might be three, but he's written some books on 2012, and his research on the Mayan calendar led him to predict the financial crisis in 2008. So these calendars look like they actually are predictive, and so this is all information that's sitting there, and the research or the patterns that we see in these cycles or calendars, they tell us stuff. Now, one of them is telling us that the calendars or time ends on October 28, 2011. Now, they're not saying that the world comes and blows up and turns into a big fireball. That's not what they're saying. And so this is an Aztec prediction that has come about, but there's also Jose Aguilas, who's talking about the Mayan calendar and his research, and he's put it in December, so some are in this one pot and some in the other. But the most important thing is to be thinking of these events and put them on a timeline, kind of compare them and see what's going on, because they're all talking about these periods in history. And in a second now, I'm going to go a little deeper into some agreed upon interesting elements of these calendars. And so there are some of these folks trying to look at it more objectively that says that this ending event although they differ, one say 2011, some say 2012, they believe that it's actually birth pains starting in October of 2011, that finally manifests itself fully in the final epic event of birthing into whatever it's going to become in December of 2012. And those two dates, by the way, are 13 months apart. So that might be of interest to somebody in numerology. But along the way, however, there are some milestone events, and that's what I want to get into, and I want to correlate those with what we're talking about on the webbot report. I don't know, Joe, I guess your listeners are probably fairly well the webbot report?
Yes, the majority of them are familiar with the webbot report, and it's a mixed feeling about the webbot report. A lot of people, feel that it's inaccurate, and Cliff High himself comes out and says, well, it is inaccurate to an extent. Some things that he predicts in the webbot report are accurate, but it's a mixed bag. But let me just I'll give a quick background, folks. The
Sure.
webbot report is formulated by Cliff High, and it comes out so often. And it what it does is it taps into the collective consciousness of society, I guess you could say, as a good a term as you can say it. But as far as the software and stuff is concerned, this is where the doc can really tie in the correlation between what the webbot uses to run its programs, or a part of it, and what the government uses also to do some of its dirty work. So go ahead, Doc. Take it away.
It's really kind of hard because it's a circle, and
Right.
in a circle of connections, you really don't know where to start. So you just have to dive in, and then you just start driving around the circle one direction, and hopefully you get all the dots connected. And there's no first or second. You just kind of have to hang on for the ride because all of it's connected, and we just had the start in the middle. So with the idea that we're headed into trying to make some correlations here, and Cliff High himself has said he's only 50% accurate.
Right.
But, if all 10 things that you're talking about are going to kill you, if only 50% of them are accurate, you're going to get killed 5 times over. So, the whole point is these are all such dramatic, life-changing events that he's got in these reports. Hey, just one of them is serious.
Right.
So, one hit is enough to be paying attention to, okay? And in the intelligence community, in which we'll be here, you'll be listeners and are going to be hearing a lot about that from me, and I'll explain why. But I'm not going to get into that right now. It's just that I've got some experiences that I will be able to give you. But let's just kind of back up then and start talking about the dates as they were coming from these ancient calendars. Well, the first date is actually the start of a period of time, and it's November of 2009. That's an interesting date, and you might think, oh, that's already passed. Well, the end of that period of time we're talking about is going to come November 3rd, 2010. Now, isn't that interesting? We know that, what's November 2nd?
What is November 2nd?
When's elections?
November 2nd, Tuesday. That's right. Oh, my goodness. That's right, the first Tuesday of November. November 2nd.
Okay, I thought I heard music. I didn't know if that was a break
or not,
and I don't, but I'm going to keep
no, it's one of those things. Just disregard it, because we'll end up, at the end of the night, you'll hear a lot more than music. I'm sure you'll get cut off. It doesn't, you know what I mean? So just keep plugging away, and we'll try and make the best of this.
Okay. Well, this time frame with these dates is associated with something you might want to call an evolutionary cycle, and it's dividing these little cycles on these calendars, like the Mayan calendar. It's divided up the history of the past the beginning of our planet Earth and the future events that were not and it still haven't all come into periods of time. And so they divided this up into 7 days and 6 nights. And each day-night cycle has to be kind of understood to kind of understand what it's going to be telling us that has significance for us here today. And so there's a difference between these two designations, day and night. I mean, they're just very different. We have a first day, we have a first night, we have a second day, a second night. And what's interesting about these cycles that is each turn of the week, each day of the week, so to speak, the first day, the second, the first, they grow shorter in time, in physical, literal time. They begin to crunch up until the very last one only lasts 260 days. So it's like things start speeding up. Okay, does that kind of make sense? Are you clear with that? Because
so far,
it just
so good.
divides it up.
Yep, so far so good.
Well, let's back up here to the more relevant time frame of November 2009, and that's what we are in, and it started the 6th galactic night, which will end on this November 2010. And each of these cycles, in each of them, there's a theme, and in these themes, we can see that it has laid upon the next cycle some of its. I'm not New Age, but the only word I can come up with is some of its karma comes over from the previous time, and so we kind of have this theme of past events showing up as if to scream that history repeats itself. And I mean, how many times have we talked about that? History seems to have this eerie. Well, if you don't learn it, of course it will. I mean, if you don't learn history, you can make the same mistakes over and over, I'm sure. And even if you do know the history, you fight the bad things from coming. But these descriptors of day and night are important because they appear to be the major theme for that period of time. So night then would represent hidden, dark agendas, and they're reflecting kind of that idea that there's some nefarious deeds that are being done, and are done at what criminals would do, steal or do their deeds at night. We're in that nighttime period, but we're at the end because guess what? It ends in November. Now, to understand how that compares, we might say then, kind of summarizing up tonight, that it's in its natural sense, that would be a time for more cleverly occult activity, for concealment, to deceive, more female in nature, and less aggressive, but more cunning. And so daytime would be a period in the humanity of conscious awareness where aggressiveness starts taking over. And it reflects that kind of tone where you're bringing things more into the light, and that nefarious deeds that might be tried to be done in secret are going to have more of a problem being done. Does that make sense? So that kind of is important for us to keep in mind, that November 2010 is going to be this time of transition between these two kinds of themes that calendar was giving us an idea about. So that's kind of the overall transition period that we're going to be facing in November. So what does that mean is going to happen? I think that's probably the most important question, and what does that mean? I mean, can we use this information? And so that's what I've been working on, and these kind of correlations have been popping up. So you want me to keep going, or just you interrupt me here, because I've got so much material to talk about. I mean, I've got some awesome. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be going back and forth between webbot stuff, calendar stuff, and then we're going to be segueing off into real people of our current times, and we're actually going to be talking about personality. So